boy, we're doing New Game Plus.
I like, honest to God, read it as like, welcome to the God of War New Game Plus Select Difficulty Commentary with your host,
Kratos.
Now, of course,
no, Kratos and his boy Tree.
Now, of course, we have to call this Dad of Boy because they went and named it God of War without any subtitles or sequel numerals at all. It's technically God of War 4, but like we in America hate sequel numbers past the number 3 for some reason. So only
you can't even say it's the same case as like Tomb Raider, which was just a reboot, from what I understand.
Yeah, that was
the prequel game.
That was a complete reboot. So
what are you playing there? Oh, I'm playing God of War. Oh, you're playing God of War on what system? PS4. Oh, so you're playing the one in Norse? No, I'm playing the original on PS4. What?
Shut up.
Oh, symbolism, because that was his family thing, and he's chopping down the tree. So it's
there's a reason for this.
Well, it can also be symbolism.
Sure.
Oh my God!
Well, I'm glad he's taking his anger out on more innocuous things.
That frickin' subtitle, Kratos, angry scream.
Angry scream.
Oh, okay. So I'm glad that they
dialogue.
essentially covered the first 3 games there. You know.
I'm glad that like we're committed to the realism, but not committed enough to the realism to acknowledge that weapons on your back need a harness of some kind to hook there.
It's a magic axe for me.
Yeah, I know, but still. But like, okay, God of War reboots. I'm past the point where I'm salty at them for going in such a radically different direction. And honestly, in retrospect, I was more annoyed with the way they were talking about it than with the direction they were going. But like, okay.
I'm still of the mind that as good as this game is, I still would have liked them to just keep the moniker and reboot it every few games. It's like, okay, so now we're doing the Norse version where it's like still a combat, but, this kind of gameplay style that's heavily, we're playing as the Norse god doing his whole God of War thingy.
So instead of it playing completely differently, it played like the old...
No. It can still play like this. You just keep the name for Sony's premier kind of like action fighting game.
Go on into a new mythology with a new main character, basically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's not a bad way to go, I don't think. But, they want to stick with Kratos. We're sticking with Kratos. You're sticking with the Blades of Chaos, I see.
Yeah. New Game Plus weirdly gives it to you early. I wasn't sure if the game would still plot lock them or not. So for the sake of the game, I will not be using them until the game says I would normally get them.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. The axe is...
Are they, like, overpowered?
No, they're not overpowered. They just serve a different purpose.
Okay. Yeah.
So, functionally speaking, I'm doing the New Game Plus. I did a poll way back when I recorded this. God, this was like 3 years ago. I recorded this. So we've
had this in the back burner for a while.
Yeah. So basically, I recorded this right when the new game download came out. I said, do you want me to do a new game where I'll be doing left side stuff because I got to plan my route and get all the stuff I actually want? Or do you want me to do a New Game Plus run where I'll be doing more side quests because I don't have to worry about, getting things? And people just wanted to do more.
Open in that case?
It's fairly more open.
Yeah, I mean, there's still lots of... All the story stuff is fairly linear, but there is kind of a big open central hub area where you can do other things if you want.
That's interesting, because that's not something I would have expected from God of War, considering that the original games were exceedingly linear. They were.
It's certainly your mileage may vary on this sort of thing, and I'm speaking as someone who, even in 2021, I've still not played this game. Like I just had not had the time.
It's extremely good.
Well,
just from an outsider's glance, like outside of the main campaign, it kind of has what I call the Ubisoft problem, where there's a lot of busy work.
Sort of. It's not that bad because there are side quests and other things, but it's not like bloated to the gills with it. It's just, we have this big open map. Do you want to go here to look for this stuff? Sure, you can. It's not like, there's 200 little trinkets to find over the course of the world or something.
Stupid feathers.
So.
I'm never gonna let them.
Is the trunk our new weapon?
It would be cool.
It should be. That would be funny, but no. Badass.
Get 2 of them, attach them to the chains, swinging them around. Over the place.
A New Game Plus armor set is a reference to God of War from 2. So
that was the last.
Well, the game isn't like The way they were talking about the game pre-release, like, it felt like they were going in a direction that wouldn't have any elements of the old God of War at all. Thankfully, they retained, I would say, just enough of the spirit of God of War to make this work. But it's clear just from watching these, 5 minutes, really, of nothing but walking and talking that they've jumped like completely and entirely on the modern cinematic gaming bandwagon.
Where do I see my mother?
Can't
I mean,
say
so
I'm
this
super
has-
enthused.
I mean, it has more gameplay than a lot of others, and two, it's one of those, it's still very high quality. Game.
Oh yeah, once the game starts, like once you're in the full swing of it, it's not like The Last of Us where it's going to be going back and forth between linear gameplay and cinematic cutscene overindulgence for the entire runtime. You're
It's
going to
just-
have like
it's like if Last of Us were like an over-the-shoulder Gears of War styled shooter on the PS2 era, I think people's reaction to it would have been different for the PS3 game. Just because the expectations were different. Like how here, like God of War when did this game come out? 2017? 2018?
Something like
2018, I think.
Yeah, God.
Also, I remember the reveal for this where it's like they're doing that cutscene. Then Atreus turns around, there's just this freaking Kratos, and everyone went nuts.
Dude, yeah, it was like the silhouette reveal and the music that accompanied it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh shit. It's a new God of War game, but it's very, very reserved, very quiet.
Yeah, it's just nothing like the originals, and that's always a tricky thing with like semi reboots like this, because on one hand, you want to take it on its own merits, but on the other hand, if you have context, it's really hard to do that, because
this is one of the rare times where I think it does work really well because the change in tone directly reflects what the lead Kratos is trying to go through. Whereas usually, the kind of soft reboots, like, oh, we're changing the style and the visual and stuff, but your main character tries to functionally act the same. So it comes across as really jarring, whereas it's like, this is a far more quiet and subdued game, and it's like
DMC
Kratos,
Devil May Cry.
I was trying not to bring it up, yes, but it's like this is like it's still the same character, but he's so much older and different that the game pace reflects his headspace very well.
Yeah. This would work better if God of War 3 wasn't so unapologetic about how it ended.
I think we'll get into it later, but it does delve into that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because God of War, like
Kratos is pretty unredeemable in 3.
Yeah, although I do think it is an interesting question of, is it possible to redeem an unredeemable character? Like, I don't know how well this game does that. I haven't seen or played it, but
I think you can make that judgment call by the end of this
I
game.
think that might be like the wrong way to word the question, because when people talk about redemption arcs for characters, they're mostly talking about whether or not the character is now likable from their own perspective. A redemption arc from a character's perspective is more complex than that. You don't have to agree with them by the end. They just have to make their personal journey. You don't have to, like, tell them that they deserve that personal journey, but, that's the redemption arc. It's from their perspective. Whether you like it or not, that's what it is. But redemption and forgiveness are two different things, and they are not nested subjects. You don't have to like the person just because they redeem themselves. And with characters, that's even more true.
And
So,
the game even manages to sneak in humor once in a while. You are hunting deer.
I ain't doing shit. I'm sitting down. I'm tired.
so
Smart ass Kratos.
So Kratos, after God of War 3, found a new family, and then the mom died because this is a Disney movie.
It's an old school Disney movie.
Not
I
even
a Disney
old
princess
school,
now.
Oh God! Wow, I
No,
am old. Never mind. I was gonna say like movies like Finding Nemo still have the dead mom. Finding Nemo came out in 2002. Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is
Because-
literally
no,
10 years old.
Kratos rounds the corner and there's just Olaf from Frozen. It's like, ugh.
So let me ask a question though. to those that have played this? Because I'd imagine a number of folks have started with this game. This is their first God of War game because of just of its different cinematic appeal, to put it in one way. Do you think at the end of the day, if they ended up liking this game so much, that is ultimately a detriment to the older games because they're so different?
Well, I mean, you got into Resident Evil through Resident Evil 4, which is like
Yes.
just as different, if not more, compared to its older games. And that didn't stop you. So, you know, it's a personal thing, but
Excellent point.
like, to be honest, despite my annoyance with the developers for their attitude during the pre-release window, I prefer this to the older God of War. I couldn't tell you why.
I mean,
maybe it's just because I'm too much of a Devil May Cry guy to really get into old school God of War. It's just a little too.
God of War, I've always felt like is like the PlayStation 2 version of a lot of, you know, like 90s SNES beat 'em ups. Like it's a little bit flashier and more thought out, but ultimately
kind
it
of.
can feel pretty mindless a
Yeah.
lot of the time.
You flail around with the Blades of Chaos a lot, and there's not a whole lot of reason to go to other weapons besides that. And the game doesn't encourage like creative styling on your enemies the way some other games do. Not as much as Devil May Cry, but not even as much as Ninja Gaiden, to be honest. Oh.
Deer.
Well, it's a good thing he wasn't playing Breath of the Wild, because you walk up on a deer in that game, it charges you head on. Knocks you off the fucking cliff.
Excuse me, I found this deer. I'm riding it back. Can I please put it in the stable? You
No.
big dick. Let me ride the deer into the stable, please. That's all I want.
I stumbled on a rhino in the mountains once, and it just knocked me off the mountainside.
You
Please tell me you landed on top of a guardian.
can't ride a skeleton into the stable. Fuck you.
Well, I mean, if you're careful when you're tumbling down a mountain, eventually you'll hit a point where you can pull out your glider. So you just have to keep mashing the button and hope it happens. I saved myself that time.
Does your axe Yeah.
Mjolnir.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Also,
Meow, meow.
sad news story. I think a few months ago, the main developer who developed that ability where the axe comes back to you, unfortunately passed away. I think a few months ago.
That's a shame.
That I was gonna bring this up, but like the Avengers game, it's based on the same combat system as this. So when you're playing as Thor, it's very ironic with that hammer acting pretty much exactly the same way as this goddamn axe. But like, yeah, it's a good. I like the axe, and it's probably a good thing that they withheld the Blades of Chaos for you for a while, because it lets
you don't get the Blades of Chaos until about 2/3 of the way through the game.
Yeah, and then at that point, it's like if you had the Blades of Chaos, a lot of players would be inclined to just use that. Kind of like me with Bayonetta 1 my first time through. I got that goddamn Dante sword, and I stuck with that most of the game. So, like, familiar is easy to fall back on, but this axe is a really good weapon in its own right. So having time to get accustomed and, dare I say, familiar with the new weapon before regaining access to the old, I think it makes it actually kind of partially solves the problem the old games had, where you had no reason to not use the Blades of Chaos and the other weapons just sort of went mostly ignored. Especially sword.
There are three fighting styles in this game. There's Axe, Bare-Fisted, and the Blades of Chaos. The Axe is probably the heaviest hitting, but it's fairly straightforward. Not that it doesn't have its own little tricks, but it's straightforward. It's damage dealing, and it does ice damage, especially when you upgrade it. The bare fist does heavy stagger damage, which gives you, if you get enough stagger on them, it's basically an insta kill or massive damage when you can launch into it. Mm-hmm. And the Blades of Chaos are probably your most combo heavy weapon and are fire based.
Yeah, and they have like mid range reach, as they always do. But I particularly like the way the axe is handled, because like not only is it heavy hitting, but that throw the axe into a target and then summon it back with another button press later, that has some tactical value. you can really mess the enemy up with clever positioning if you use that axe. And honestly, that's part of the reason I prefer this game, because the combat style it opens you up on is pretty tactical once you understand what your options are. And that really helps. Whereas, like, with the Blades of Chaos in the previous games, that you spent the whole game with an option that basically just let you either, hey, wail really hard on one enemy, or hey, swing your blades around and hit everything around you all at once. And
Swing your arm from side to side.
yeah.
I will say I appreciate the weight that you have to your swings in this game. It's something that I feel like is underappreciated in a lot of games, where usually the flashier, kind of like faster moving kind of games tend to get more press, but I always really like these games where your punches like really feel like they hit really hard.
Yeah,
One example is like Marvel vs. Capcom versus Tekken. You know, like in Marvel vs. Capcom, it's about making a billion hits in a row, and Tekken, it's like you hit someone once, but it really feels like you hit them hard, which, you know,
you still need to juggle combo the enemy into oblivion if you want to make it professionally. But
I mean,
you know.
yeah, but I'm never gonna be on that level in either game. So, you know, this is just coming from the standpoint of a casual person. But
yeah.
yeah.
But like, you're right, that feeling of impact is really satisfying, and I feel like it's a feeling that suits Kratos very well, and it's a feeling that the other God of War games don't have, because PS2 era impact was hard back then, and God of War 3 didn't really do much to up its game on that in that specific area.
I'd say the gauntlets had some decent weight to them in 3.
Yeah, they
but
did.
Otherwise, yeah.
But they kept the Blades of Chaos, the weapon you're mainly going to be using the whole time, feeling pretty much the same way they did in God of War 1. And that just means it feels like they phase through a lot of the enemies. That look and feel of impact just isn't really there. But like, that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad games. Just it's one visual audio aspect of the game that I feel this game does better in general.
Generally agreed. It helps that Kratos isn't quite so acrobatic in this game. They do make you feel like you are a big burly man compared to the young, big older burly man compared to before.
I wouldn't call Kratos in the PS2 games acrobatic. He just kind of had a really floaty jump.
Well, I mean, considering the QTEs, I would say.
Oh, well, the QTEs
more in line with those, yeah.
Yeah, so even in like the death stuff, you know, the death killer animation stuff, he's still not flying around all over the place like he used to.